Hello again, welcome back. So I wanted to make today's video on what it feels like when you finally get your ADHD diagnosis. This is a video that I would kind of like to have seen before I was diagnosed. So I think it may possibly be beneficial to people. So here we are. So if you don't want to listen to me ramble for a little while about how I felt pre-diagnosis, for instance, you can skip straight through to the part that I've labelled how it feels to get diagnosed, and that will be in the description below as a timestamp. So I want to start by going over what led me to seek a diagnosis in the first place. So a little bit of background on where I was at the time. One of the biggest things that made me seek a diagnosis was my horrendously poor concentration. I wouldn't be able to follow a trail of thought whatsoever. It would come into my head for 2 seconds, I'd blurt out half of it, and then I wouldn't be able to finish what I was saying because I had no idea where I was going with that story. And in terms of my concentration as well, if I'd sat down to do some work at home, I would probably be able to concentrate for about 45 seconds at a time before I'd have to take a break or look at my phone or go and make a coffee or, I don't know, scratch my ass. So that was really irritating. The second thing that made me seek my diagnosis was the fact that I was zoning out all the time and I was so inattentive. I've always daydreamed a lot as it is. Even growing up as a kid, people used to say that I'd go into Ollieland because I'd just be sort of away with the fairies for a little while. And that was frustrating because I didn't necessarily mean to zone out. I wanted to be there present with what was going on, but I kind of had no choice, to be honest. It was done for me. That ties in quite well with how inattentive I was as well. Say, for instance, someone was giving me some instructions of what I had to do at work or school or whatever it was. I'd be listening to them, but the words would just be coming in and going straight back out again. And it seemed like I wasn't listening to them. And the last big thing that led me to get a diagnosis was how many careless mistakes I would make. I seem to remember in my school years, when I was doing homework, I would sit there and go through it and write it all out. And unless I went back through the work to check for mistakes, I could almost guarantee that there would be sort of 4 or 5 things that I would have got the answer right, but I would have written the wrong answer down. I would have written one of the answers that I got in the workings out, for instance. And it's little things like that just, you can't piece the puzzle together completely. And when you finally do get to the answer, you stumble at the last hurdle because you just write the wrong one despite having got the right one initially. So I want to go into a little bit now how I felt pre-diagnosis as well. The biggest thing was probably frustration with myself. Growing up, I kind of always felt like there was something wrong with me. And that led me to seek out what it might be that was wrong with me. And when I never came up with an answer, or the answer turned out not to be right, it would make me so frustrated because I just feel like I was going around in a circle. I'd end up spending hours and hours and hours just obsessively searching the internet and YouTube and places for my symptoms that I was having, what they could mean, what sort of treatment there was for them if I were to be diagnosed, just in the hope that the symptoms that I was feeling would subside and I could get a little bit of peace, I guess. Side note, I think that also might possibly tie into like a downfall of my mental health, because that would have been about the time that things really started to go downhill for me. So that might be an answer. I'm still looking for answers. Yeah, never mind. So moving on now to how I finally felt when I was diagnosed with ADHD. The first thing I felt was a sudden sense of overwhelm at sort of having the answer that I'd been searching for ages. It'd been such a long build up to get to this point through hundreds of different illnesses that I most likely have, that I almost didn't believe it for a while, even though every one of my symptoms fit in there perfectly. And I'd just been told by someone much smarter than me that this is most likely what's causing these things. The second one was a sudden sense of responsibility. Now that I'd got the answer that I wanted, I knew that it wasn't going to be sort of a silver bullet and cure everything that was wrong with me, or everything that I felt was wrong with me. So at that point, I kind of needed to find out what the medication and the treatment would help with, and what I'll have to work on my own. And yeah, the responsibility that I then felt, I suppose, was a sign of what I would need to work on myself, instead of hoping for the medication to fix it automatically. The last thing was a deep sense of satisfaction and relief at kind of the validation of being told that this is the thing that you've been suffering with, this is what's causing your problems. It meant that I could now stop that relentless search for what the problem was, and start living my life and work on those parts of me that I know I need to improve on. So everyone feels really differently when they're diagnosed with any condition, I'm sure. Some people will be elated, some people will be furious, confused, whatever. My experience was really good. It was a really sort of cathartic experience. And I hope, if you are seeking a diagnosis, I hope the same for you as well. So I'd love to hear where you are in the process, if you are trying to get an ADHD diagnosis. So let me know, and yeah, tell me how you're getting on. Anyway, that's it for today's video. I'll see you in the next one. Yeah, ciao.